more than, I think she said 3 years. Sometimes there's a long time between sightings. So if you guys, again, if you do get pictures on any whale watch, anywhere, or even off your cruise ship, I do encourage you guys to upload it, because if it's got a name, I'm going to email you back a name to happywhale.com. Happywhale.com. It really is a really cool resource, and it does rely off of passenger interaction and crew interaction. That's really going to be how they drive their data. A few other questions though. Somebody was asking me how often we see their face. Humpback whales. Not often. That behavior that kelp was doing, that's called lunge feeding. We don't get to see that super often. So what he was doing, he was actually chasing fish up to the surface of the water, and he was coming up so fast the momentum was carrying his mouth out of the water. And somebody asked me, you know, what's the largest thing that these humpback whales could potentially eat? Before I answer that question, does anybody have a guess as to how many teeth a humpback whale might have? Just go ahead and call it out. 340. So you're close, but they don't actually have any teeth. They have baleen, and you're right in the ballpark of how many baleen they would have. So they're going to have between 200 to 400 plates of baleen. That's going to be inside their mouth. If you are downstairs, I am holding up a piece of bowhead whale baleen right now. So this is what they have instead of teeth. It's made out of keratin, same stuff as your hair or your fingernails. And a humpback whale, like this young man said, is going to have between 200 to 400 plates of this that'll just hang down from their top jaw, spaced about 1 centimeter apart. And when they are feeding, they're going to open their mouths up to almost a 90-degree angle. They're going to take in a bunch of seawater and food. They have these little folds of skin on the underside of their jaw that'll extend down to where their belly button or their navel would be. These folds of skin are called ventral pleats, and they're going to expand like a bullfrog to accommodate all that extra water and food. Now, they are mammals like you and I. They're not going to try to drink that seawater, so as much of it as they can, they're going to close their mouth most of the way, and they're going to shove all that seawater back out of their mouth. All the food that they're eating is going to get stuck on these baleen plates here. There's usually going to be hair on the inside here. This is a very old, very well-loved piece of baleen, so the hair is mostly gone here. But if you imagine almost like a brush, it does have hair that will kind of dangle down here. I do have a photo up here of what that looks like inside their mouth if you guys are curious about it. You guys can come up here and check it out. But that's going to be how they filter their food out. Now, despite being such a very large animal, these guys don't have a very large throat. Their throat's not that big, about the size of a grapefruit, maybe about the size of a volleyball, which means the largest thing that they could probably eat sits somewhere around the size of a salmon. I don't think a humpback whale would be upset if it got a salmon in its mouth. I know I wouldn't be upset if I got a salmon in my mouth. But they're not going to usually go after salmon because salmon are game fish, which means they don't group up in tight schools like herring or capelin do. Now notice I didn't say usually. Some of these whales, they're very smart animals, and they have learned where the Alaska Department of Fish and Game will release salmon fry, or baby salmon, to go out into the wild. And some of those whales will sit at those locations with their mouths wide open, ready to eat over $1 million worth of fish in a single bite. Obviously, we can't have that because we also like salmon. And in order to eat salmon, they first have to survive that first encounter with a whale. So the Alaska Department of Fish and Game, I think, has tried a couple different strategies onto trying to deter this type of behavior because you can't relocate a whale. Even if we could get enough helicopters to physically lift a whale out of the water, it would actually crush its own internal organs under its own weight. So you can't relocate a whale. Best they can do is install valve release systems where they can stop that flow of salmon fry out into the wild. So hopefully that whale gets bored and goes and finds other food that's easier to get. These whales are also altruistic, and altruism is not unheard of in the animal kingdom, but it is not super often observed between different species. Now, this has actually been observed between humpback whales and humans specifically. I don't remember all the specifics, but there was I think she was a shark researcher. She was a diver in the water off the west coast somewhere. I don't remember exactly where. And she was in the water doing her thing. She turns around and she sees this giant humpback whale in her face. And, you know, she freaks out a little bit at first because it's a large animal. We're probably about the equivalent of maybe a cat to a humpback whale. We're not very big compared to them. Maybe even less than a cat. So she freaks out. This whale starts nudging her towards the surface. She regains her cool and kind of lets it do its thing. Once it gets her to the surface, starts kind of shepherding her towards a boat that she was based out of. Upon getting onto the boat, the rest of her crew is like, there's a big old shark back there. And I believe it was a tiger shark. And that particular tiger sharks have been known to be aggressive towards humans. And I believe that particular tiger shark had actually been reported of attacking humans in the area. Which means that whale saw a couple things. First, that human was in potential danger. Just because there's a tiger shark in the water doesn't mean that it's going to attack you, but the whale recognized it as a potential threat, knew that that human's safest place to be was going to be on that boat, and took all the steps necessary to get that human to where it deemed safe. So these guys, super smart, altruistic. They've also been observed to scoop up prey items of orcas or killer whales while they've been hunted, pick up a sea lion or a seal and kind of roll onto their back and pass them back and forth between their pectoral fins to give that animal a chance to escape the orcas. Now, we don't know for sure why we do this. We do think it might have something to do with the fact that orcas actually do predate on baby whales, and humpbacks might not like that too much, so they might just try to interfere with every hunt. And I've seen that happen a few times where orcas were in the area and humpbacks stopped what they were doing, and they kind of perked up and started getting in between the orcas and whatever else was in the area, or trying to at least. So these guys, they don't particularly care for orcas. And I've worked with other captains who in the past have just said, you know, these guys have been observed to stop what they're doing if orcas are in the area and just kind of group up. A couple other questions that I wanted to briefly answer here on the microphone before I run out of time here, because I am running out of time. One of the questions that was pretty common, water depth here in the area. Average water depth is between about 200 to 600 feet. It does get pretty deep out here. It also inversely can get pretty shallow, as you can see by some of these little islands over here. They just pop up at random places. The other question that I got pretty frequently throughout the tour is my name actually Denali? Yes, it is actually Denali. Out of curiosity, has anybody been to see Denali? Okay, a couple people. When you guys went to see it, did you guys get to see over the top of the mountain?
No.
No? Okay, for those of you that don't know, Mount Denali is the same mountain as Mount McKinley. Up here in Alaska, it's always really been called Denali. The word Denali itself is an indigenous word. It means the Great One. You can tell I'm super humble about that translation. But it is the highest elevation here in North America, sitting at an elevation of over 20,000 feet elevation. It is so high up there that when you go to see it, only I think 30% of people who go to see it get to see over the top of it, because it is so tall that it's usually covered in clouds. Which means when you guys go home, each and every one of you can now say that you've been to Alaska and you've seen on a cloudy day. You guys don't have to tell it was me, right? You can tell us just a little bit. This is your Alaskan story. The very last thing that I wanted to answer, what do we do in the winter? There's a lot of people who asked, and it depends on who you are. Some of us will go follow the whales down to Hawaii or Mexico. That would be my dream. I would love to do that. Not yet been able to do that. But some of us will follow the whales. Others will go back to school. Some of us will go to ski resorts, do other seasonal work in other places around the U.S. Personally, if I'm not road tripping down south, and when an Alaskan says down south, y'all, by the way, it just means the lower 48 states. Everywhere is down south to an Alaskan. Seattle is considered down south to Alaskans. But if I'm not road tripping down south, I will stay here and I will work at an after-school program called Juneau-Alaska Music Matters, which is an after-school elementary program teaching 2nd through 5th grade, well, technically kindergarten through 5th graders, but I work with 2nd grade through 5th grade how to play violin and viola. So that keeps me pretty busy in the winter if I'm not going to be road tripping. Now, I was going to be visiting my boss here for that music job before the season kicked into gear, and as I was visiting, I was waiting for her last class to get out before her lunch period. So it's part of the day that I'm not usually there. I was there during the school day. I'm usually there after school. And as I was waiting, I realized I was listening to all these little kids sing in Tlingit, which is the indigenous language here in the area. And it hit me with this big wave of emotion, because I'm actually part Tlingit myself. And growing up here, it wasn't cool to be Tlingit. It wasn't cool to know Tlingit. In fact, sometimes it got you bullied. So listening to other people speak my ancestral language, I'm not used to hearing that. And I looked into it later. It turns out there's fewer than 50 fluent speakers of Tlingit left in the world. So it's very hard to find translations for things. When I learned that, I decided that I was going to share one phrase with everybody who comes on my boat. That phrase is Goonash Chish. If I was to spell that phonetically, Goonash, Goonash, and then Cheesh, Cheesh, Goonash Cheesh. Goonash Cheesh in Tlingit means thank you. And I just wanted to say Goonash Cheesh, thank you guys for coming out here today, because it means the world to me and the rest of my crew that you guys chose to come out with Allen Marine. That means that we get to do what we love to do, which is be here on the water, watching these amazing animals in their natural environments. Turns out we could not do this without you guys. You guys do actually have to be on the boat. Our boss is not just let us take these boats out whenever we want. You guys have to be here. So Goonash Cheesh, thank you guys. I also want to give a quick Goonash Cheesh or thank you to the rest of my crew that make what I do a lot of fun. If we could get a round of applause for Alta back in the galley for keeping you guys fed. Round of applause for our deckhand Nate as well. He's usually here before and after the trip, cleaning the boat, making sure it's ready to go. And folks, I don't know if I've said this to everybody, but there's 80 different whale watching boats out here watching whales this year. The trip that we just had, where we didn't really have a majority of those boats around us, is not a trip that we get very often. Big round of applause for Captain Jackie for getting us that kind of trip, guys. I myself am not quite sure how she managed to dodge all those other boats, but I know we're out here because this is our third trip and I saw them earlier. That was awesome. And folks, if you do want to leave a review, we do have a QR code back in the galley. If you enjoyed the tour, some keywords to include could be the crew's names, Denali, Alta, Nate, and Jackie. If you enjoyed the tour. If you did not enjoy the tour, some keywords, the names that you're going to leave today are going to be Chandler, Joey, Monica, and Rachel. Okay? They will never figure out which crew you guys have. And I just have one more announcement. A little bit of bad news. We have more salmon dip left. If you guys did like it, we're opening it up for seconds. Please help us finish it off. I am concerned about Nate personally, on a personal level. If he eats any more of that, he might actually explode. So if you guys want to go back there and have seconds, you guys are more than welcome to head back there.